Morning. I'd like to welcome you to People's Church this morning. People's Church is a member of the Unitarian Universalist Association, and we come here to learn more about being human. We come here not because we've figured out life's questions or think we've got it right, but maybe we know something about the search. And we come here to be in more of a right relationship with one another, how to listen, how to forgive, how to be vulnerable, and create trust and compassion. That's really what we're all about. And I'm Gordon Bolar with the Sunday Services Committee. I'd like to welcome you to our service this morning. It's a little bit different because we have a guest minister who will do our sermon and some other parts of our service by Zoom. So let me introduce, in this image up here, she will appear in a minute, Reverend Claudia Jiménez. Now, Reverend Claudia Jiménez serves as Minister of Faith Development at Unitarian Universalist Congregation of Asheville, North Carolina. Prior to seminary, she served as Director of Religious Education for the Unitarian Universalist Fellowship of Vero Beach, Florida, for 17 years. And at that time, she ran for office and served on her local school board for 8 years. Claudia and her husband, Steve, are proud parents of 2 young adult daughters. When not at work, she enjoys Latin dancing, hiking, and traveling. So let me introduce for her words of welcome and introduction, Reverend Claudia Jiménez.
Good morning. Buenos dias. I bring greetings from Asheville, North Carolina, and I am so excited to preach at your congregation because one of your ministers of old, Reverend Carolyn Bartlett Crane, is one of my sheroes. So I'm glad to be with you. Our opening words this morning are adapted from an invocation by Reverend Elizabeth Mount. Come into this place, bringing all you hold with you. Though your heart may be heavily burdened, whether you are on the brink of tears or burn with unquenchable rage, this community can hold you and your strongest emotions. Yes, even the messy ones are welcome here. Come in if you sing just a little bit too loud. If you hold still a statue and just breathe in. If you sway to the music moving your soul, you are welcome. Come in and say amen when the Spirit moves you. Tell the preacher to preach. Yes, that's right. Tell us. Or close your eyes and quietly let your mind float on the words you hear. Come into this place with every piece of yourself gathered up and let us together be the church incarnate. Let us bring forth the spirit of all that we love by the words of our mouths and the doing of our hands as we make sacred this time together. Let us worship this day.
Peter Sparling, the president of the board of People's Church, to the pulpit for an announcement.
Good morning, everyone. So yes, I am Marty Peter Sparling. I've been a member here for, I think, about 10 years now. I've been on the board of trustees for the past 2.5 years, and now I'm serving as the president for this year. And I'm also on a subcommittee called the Regathering Team. And so I have an announcement from that committee today. And so as I was writing down a few notes, I happened to look over in my journal and I noticed some other things that I had noted from a book that I'm reading, and I thought they were related in a way. So I thought I'd share. I'm reading a book called Mindful of Race by Ruth King right now. She's a Black meditation instructor and anti-racism teacher. And her book talks about how we can use mindfulness to do the difficult work of anti-racism. And she talks about the three existence as taught, which are impermanence, selflessness, and unreliability. Impermanence is the idea that nothing is constant except for change. Selflessness is always a tough one for me, but it's that idea that there's really no reliable self, and it's not personal is one way that she puts it. And then unreliability, we are not in control. We're never perfect. So she summarizes these teachings into a mantra of sorts that she says, life is not personal, permanent, or perfect. And then she also quotes Shunryu Suzuki, a Japanese Zen teacher, who says, nothing we see or hear is perfect, but right there in the imperfection is perfect reality. So the Regathering Committee has been meeting off and on for the past 3 years since COVID started. It's almost 3 years now. We consist of Reverend Rachel, of course, Melissa Emmerich, and before her, Chris Schluter as our administrator, Gary Heckman, our expert in all things HVAC, Donna McClurkin, RN, Dr. Greg Feldmeyer, and myself. And so we've been meeting to help determine when it was okay for us to start to come back to in-person services in the church, coming up with policies and screening protocols. And it's been challenging work, and we certainly have made mistakes, and we're not perfect. We've been doing our best. And we most recently met to decide, is it time to take away the mask mandate? We've been much more conservative than most churches, most community events, even trying to be very concerned for those that are most vulnerable in our community. But looking at the numbers, we've been following the COVID Act Now website. So if you want to look at that yourself, it's covidactnow.org, where it assesses the community risk level. We are currently at a low level. It looks at reported cases in the hospital, admissions, and as well as hospital beds that are filled with COVID patients, and comes up with an algorithm that determines our level of risk. So currently we're at 47 cases per 100,000 people per week, 6.1 admissions per 100,000, and a hospital bed rate of 4.4%. And those levels are all considered very low. We were at 1,500 per 100,000 patients a year ago. So now we're down to the 40s. So we've decided, based on the science, based on the availability of treatment and vaccines, that it's time to allow our members to make their own decision about risk and decide if you want to wear a mask or not. So that will start not today. No throwing your masks in the air. I know Gary wants to do that. But starting next week, so in February, we will no longer require masks. We will not be doing the screening at the front desk either. But of course, if you feel more comfortable wearing a mask, then we don't want to judge or discriminate against anybody. So you can, of course, continue to wear your mask. And if you have been exposed, if you have been sick recently, then yes, please, you're welcome, but wear your mask for sure. So that's my announcement for today. Masks are optional as of next week. So I am available for questions, of course, and any of the other members of the committee, I'm sure, would be happy to answer questions. Yeah, hopefully we can continue to move forward, and we'll learn if numbers do start to go up again. So if that risk level moves up to the medium range, then we'll probably re-meet as a team and decide if it's time to reinstate the mask mandate or not. So we'll try to keep you all updated, and we'll keep the information flowing. So thank you.
Thank you. One final announcement. You might notice on our art wall over at that side of the sanctuary, there's an exhibition. Images of the Night by Eric Schreer. And I urge you to enjoy that. There will be a reception for that exhibition, that artist, on February the 12th, 2 weeks from now, after the service. Thank you.
Good morning from me. I invite you to rise and body our spirit to sing our opening song together. It's a fun melody. Oh, we give thanks for this precious day, for all gathered here and those far away, for this time we share with love and care. Oh, we give thanks for this precious day. And one more time. Oh, we give thanks for this precious day, for all gathered here and those far away, for this time we share with love and care. Oh, we give thanks for this precious day.
And now, as we light our chalice today, if you're lighting a chalice on Zoom from home, you may type into the chat box, "A chalice is lit," in your neighborhood or your town or your street. So as we light our chalice, I read these words by Eric A. Heller Wagner. Blessed is the fire that burns deep in the soul. It is the flame of the human spirit touched into being by the mystery of life. It is the fire of reason, the fire of compassion, the fire of community, the fire of justice, the fire of faith. It is the fire of love burning deep in the human heart, the divine glow in every life. And I don't know if we have a chance to read any of the chalice, but if you have anything, please come forward there, Melissa, with the microphone by the oh, thank you.
We have a lot of chalices lit out in the world today. We have a chalice in Portage, in Galesburg, Texas Township, Homecrest, North Asheville, North Carolina, Parkview Hills, the historic South Downtown neighborhood, on Munson Lake near Grand Junction, Schoolcraft, Kalamazoo Township, Oshtemo, 2 in Parkview Hills, and 1 on Grand Prairie.
I'd like to invite the children or anyone young at heart who wishes to get a better look at the pictures to come forward, and we'll have our time for all ages. Hey, sweetie. Hi, good morning, Laura. Hi, Kaya. Will you be able to see if you sit?
Sit by you.
Okay, will you be able to see?
I can't sit by you.
Sit here. There we go. Awesome, awesome. Yeah, sit where you can see. Mhm. Hi, do you have a seat, Mara? Do you have a place where you can sit? Right there, perfect. Hey, Gigi. All right. I've been thinking recently about the word resilience. Does anybody know what the word resilience means? It's kind of a longer word. Oh, do you know, Sophie? No. You just wanted to say hi. Okay. Oh, yes, perfect. Yeah. That is an excellent definition. When something is hard, you keep trying. I was thinking about my very favorite, most resilient character that I know. You might know him too. That's Pete the cat. Yep. This is Pete the cat. This cat is the most resilient cat that I know.
He's wearing white shoes.
Yes, he's wearing white shoes. So, oh, this is by James Dean and Eric Litwin. So let's see what happens to Pete the
There's
cat.
someone at my school.
Yeah. Here he goes. Can you see the pictures?
Yeah.
Awesome. Pete the cat was walking down the street in his brand new white shoes. Pete loved his shoes so much. He sang this song, and I'll sing it, and you can feel free to sing along if you like. It goes like this. I love my white shoes. I love my white shoes. I love my white shoes. I love my white shoes when. Oh no. Pete stepped in a huge pile of strawberries. What color are his shoes now?
Red.
Let's see. Oh, you're smart. Red. Did Pete cry?
No.
Goodness, no. He kept walking along and singing his song like this. I love my red shoes. I love my red shoes. I love my red shoes. I love my red shoes when. Oh no. Pete stepped in a large pile of blueberries.
My brother.
What color are his shoes now?
Blue.
Blue. Yeah, no color mixing theory here, guys. It's all blue.
It should be purple.
I know. I agree.
Me too.
Did Pete cry about his blue and or purple shoes? Goodness, no. He kept walking along and singing his song like this. I love my blue shoes. I love my blue shoes. I love my blue shoes. I love my blue shoes when. Oh no. Pete stepped in a large puddle of mud. Ooh. What color are his shoes now? Brown. Did Pete cry this time? Goodness, no. He kept walking along and singing his song. I love my brown shoes. I love my brown shoes. I love my brown shoes. I love my brown shoes when. Oh no! Pete stepped in a large bucket of water, and all the brown and all the blue and all the red washed away. Do you remember what color his shoes are?
White.
His shoes were white, but they were also wet. Have you ever walked in wet shoes?
Yes.
Do you think Pete cried this time?
No.
Goodness, no. He kept walking along and singing his song. I love my wet shoes. 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 Which goes to show you, no matter what you step in, keep walking along and singing your song. Because it's all good. And that's Pete. All right. I invite you to head off to your classes. If you're doing OWL with me, we are going downstairs.
Go forth in peace in search of wisdom, with love to guide you on your way. And may the joy of life surround you wherever you may go. Go forth in peace in search of wisdom, with love to guide you on your way. And may the joy of life surround you wherever you may go.
And now, as we prepare to pass the collection plates for our offering, let me urge you to support the good and important work of People's Church. And you may do this with the collection plates, or there is a website to give printed in your program. Thank you.
Dark of winter, soft and still, your quiet calm surrounds me. Let my thoughts go where they will, ease my mind profoundly, and then my soul will sing a song, a blessed song of love eternal. Gentle darkness, soft and still, bring your quiet to me. Darkness, soothe my weary eyes, that I may see more clearly. When my heart with sorrow cries, comfort and caress me, and then my soul may hear a voice, a still small voice of love eternal. Darkness, when my fears arise, let your peace flow through me.
Please join me in giving thanks for all that sustains us. From the countless gifts we've each been given, gifts of life and love and sustenance, we bring these small portions, share in the works of love, which none of us can accomplish alone. People's Church is a community that supports one another in good times and in hard times. One of the ways we do that each week is that we take time when we're gathered to share the joys, sorrows, and milestones of our life. So if you are with us on Zoom, I invite you to type into the chat box anything you wish to share. We're going to pause the recording of the service, by the way, while we do this. And if you're with us in person, I invite you to come forward here by the table. I will meet you and say your name and speak briefly into the microphone. And you're welcome to place a stone or request a stone be placed in the bowl.
In the center of our service, we have made time to share joys and sorrows that we hold in our hearts and some that remain unspoken. Now I invite us to open our hearts to a time of spoken meditation. I invite you to sit comfortably, to feel the ground beneath your feet, to lower your eyes or lower your gaze and listen to the words of Mary Ives. There is room for you here. If God is your strength and companion, and prayer the means of centering your thoughts, there is room for you here. If the teachings of the Buddha give you clarity and calm in the midst of human striving, there is room for you here. If Gaia's seasonal rhythms lead you best through the myriad steps of life's great dance, there is room for you here. If the still mysterious capacity and power of the mind stirs your imagination and quickens your pulse, there is room for you here. Rest now beside that spring, wherever it is for you, and let your attention go to the small places inside or out in the great wide world, places or people in need of healing, or for which your heart is filled with thanksgiving. In that spirit, let us share a musical meditation.
I invite you to join me from your seats. We start by breathing. Breathe in, breathe out, breathe in, breathe out. When I breathe in, I'll breathe in peace. When I breathe out, I'll breathe out love. When I breathe in, I'll breathe in peace. When I breathe out, I'll breathe out love. Breathe in, breathe out, breathe in, breathe out.
Our reading this morning is from Margaret Wheatley, Turning to One Another. There is no power greater than a community discovering what it cares about. Ask what's possible, not what's wrong. Keep asking. Notice what you care about. Assume that many others share your dreams. Be brave enough to start a conversation that matters. Talk to people you know. Talk to people you don't know. Talk to people you never talk to. Be intrigued by the differences you hear. Expect to be surprised. Treasure curiosity more than certainty. Invite in everybody who cares to work on what's possible. Acknowledge that everyone is an expert about something. Know that creative solutions come from new connections. Remember, you don't fear people whose story you know. Real listening always brings people closer together. Trust that meaningful conversations can change your world. Rely on human goodness. Stay together.
Please rise and body your spirit. We're going to sing Fire of Commitment. From the light of days remembered burns a beacon bright and clear, guiding hands and hearts and spirits into faith set free from fear. When the fire of commitment sets our mind and soul ablaze, when our hunger and our passion meet to call us on our way, when we live with deep assurance of the flame that burns within, then our promise finds fulfillment and our future can begin. From the stories of our living rings a song both brave and free, calling pilgrims still to witness to the life of liberty. When the fire of commitment sets our mind and soul ablaze, when our hunger and our passion meet to call us on our way, when we live with deep assurance of the flame that burns within, then our promise finds fulfillment and our future can begin. From the dreams of youthful vision comes a new prophetic voice, which demands a deeper justice built by our courageous choice. When the fire of commitment sets our mind and soul ablaze, when our hunger and our passion meet to call us on our way, when we live with deep assurance of the flame that burns within, then our promise finds fulfillment and our future can begin.
I invite you to travel to 1887, to the frontier, as it was called then, in Sioux Falls, in what was known as the Dakota Territory. Now imagine you are at a worship service, and in the pews is a young girl named Queenie, who accompanies her mother to service at the Sioux Falls Unity Church. And as she and her brother settle in their pew, a visiting minister takes his place in the pulpit. And unable to control her surprise, Queenie exclaims, "Why, Mama, there's a man in the pulpit." Her brother hushed her. "Yes, Queenie," he said, "men do preach sometimes." Now, this story is told by Carolyn Bartlett Crane of a pulpit exchange she arranged at her first church. Today, women comprise approximately 60% of Unitarian Universalist ministers. But in the late 19th century, there were few Unitarian or Universalist women ministers in the United States. Both denominations refused to defy traditional gender roles by allowing women into ministry. Now, many women worked behind the scenes without title or pay. If women felt called to ministry, overcame the obstacles of a theological education, and became ministers, finding a job was difficult. And so, despite grueling conditions and low pay, some women could be found ministering to small, unstable congregations on the frontier, jobs their male counterparts would not take. So who was Carolyn Bartlett Crane? Today, her Twitter handle would be at Notorious CBC, and you'll see why. Caroline Julia Bartlett was born in Wisconsin in 1858. And at an early age, she questioned church dogma, wondering how God could inflict pain arbitrarily or send unbaptized babies or unbelievers to hell, questioning the concept of resurrection. Her doubts and interest in ministry were ignored or rebuked. Her family encouraged her education, hoping she would outgrow her desire to become a minister. Crane attended college and graduated at the top of her class. And again, she raised the issue of ministry to her father, who said no. So she worked as a teacher and a journalist and persisted in her desire to study ministry until her father said yes. Caroline studied independently, mentored by progressive Unitarian and Universalist ministers, and her first ministry was at All Souls Church in Sioux Falls, where we heard about Queenie earlier. Later, she served the First Unitarian Church in Kalamazoo, Michigan, a church that was losing membership after a period of congregational conflict. Now, Crane was intrigued by the challenge of serving this church that seemed to be dying. At the time, Kalamazoo was a city without resources to deal with the homeless, disease, and juvenile delinquency as industrialization, immigration, and urbanization transformed America. And Crane saw an opportunity to expand her ministry beyond the church walls. Crane's ministry was influenced by the social gospel movement that emerged in the late 1880s. The growth of cities created deplorable living conditions. The need for services, education, and spiritual sustenance was pervasive. Leaders of the social gospel movement advocated Christian engagement to address the oppressive living conditions of workers, because remember, at that time, Unitarians and Universalists embraced a Christian theology. And so this led to the questioning of theologies that ignored the poor. The social gospel inspired Crane to imagine a church relevant to its time, serving the community, regardless of race or creed, 7 days a week. Crane wrote that there was no church so small, weak, and isolated that it cannot and ought not find a work of love to do. She recalled members telling her the church only needed a minister to perform funerals. Some members were reluctant to embrace a female minister, but her intelligence, her preaching, her organizational skills eclipsed the issue of gender as the church grew and blossomed under her leadership. Her sermons expanded the definition of church and inspired community engagement. Crane wrote that once the congregation started to grow, even the dear old people concluded not to die for a while, but to stay and work in the church. Crane revitalized the religious education program, added a midweek service, and encouraged study clubs. For example, the Unity Study Club researched the city's sewerage, water supply, and education to better understand the challenges in their community. So Crane challenged her congregation to work for the common good as well as spiritual growth. Her definition of a spiritual person was one who believes, reveres, and serves the good, which others call God. Now that idea anticipates the modern Unitarian Universalist emphasis on doing good rather than focusing on creeds. You've heard that expression, deeds, not creeds, linked to Unitarian Universalist. The community outreach that Crane inspired mobilized the Kalamazoo Church. In 1893, a wealthy member donated funds for a building to serve the community. The following year, the People's Church of Kalamazoo was dedicated, and Crane proposed that name change to reflect its inclusive nature. And that is the name that you still carry today. People's Church then included a kindergarten classroom, a gym for women, a literacy club in partnership with the Black community, and vocational programs. These programs filled important needs in the community. Now, the church was careful not to duplicate services provided by existing organizations. Crane wrote, "The chief function of the seven-day church was to inaugurate good works, which ought to be carried on at public charge, but for which the public did not yet recognize the responsibility." The kindergarten and the vocational programs were so popular that the school district taxed itself to provide these two programs in the public schools. What an amazing legacy. Crane preached. She breathed life into and revived a dwindling congregation by inspiring a sense of responsibility, by appealing to conscience and to the logical extension of Unitarian values into community action. Her call to action beyond the walls of the church had meaningful and lasting impacts on the Kalamazoo community. So how can CBC's story inspire us today? Unitarian Universalist congregations can provide opportunities for spiritual discernment and sustenance that supports the work of living our values in the world, like Carolyn Bartlett Crane did in the frontier. Her response to the societal challenges of her time was ministry beyond the walls of the church, whose buildings served the community 7 days a week, and by promoting a theology rooted in goodness, not godliness. So for us Unitarian Universalists today, part of that relevance is thinking about what the purpose of church is for us and what the purpose of our church is in the community that we live in. During this time, when we are coming back from a pandemic, you're all rejoicing because you don't necessarily have to wear masks all the time at church anymore. This pandemic has changed us, and it is endemic. And so one of the things we're called to do in this time is understand how church is being redefined. So for example, the pandemic forced us to gather virtually. I could not be here. I would not be here today if it weren't for the pandemic, because I would probably have to travel to Kalamazoo, and budgets are very limited for that kind of ministry today. But our ability to be hybrid enables us to diversify the voices in our pulpits. It enables us to reach people that we may not be able to reach because maybe they cannot drive to church every morning, but they can tune in on Zoom. So during the pandemic, we found ways to keep church alive beyond the brick and mortar. So our question is, as this virus becomes endemic, how are we going to do church differently? And what does church mean? Because going back to business as usual, which we realized in many ways in our communities and larger society was toxic, is really not the best of options. What have we learned as we return to our campuses and our buildings about how we can best use our spaces? How will we avoid returning to a toxic normal seeped in white supremacy culture, economic inequity, and in a time when our nation is deeply divided? How will we use our voice to walk the talk of our faith? How will our congregations be places to heal from the trauma and grief of the pandemic and the ongoing police violence and ongoing threats to our democracy? What conversations do we need to have to discover what matters to our communities and how we can be allies or accomplices in justice work? My friends, this is a time for reimagining how we do church, for honoring the legacy of those who came before us and modeled how we can do a very creative 7-day church in a time when that was a great response to the challenges of industrialization, of immigration, and Jim Crow. What does that look for us today? What does that look like in Kalamazoo? Now that digital ministry has been part of church for the last few years, we're experiencing a church that we've never experienced before. Our denomination is engaging us with you the vote, with the 8th principle, with a hybrid General Assembly, with revisions to Article 2, which is the covenant that is foundational to our faith. How are we responding to these times? We are a living tradition. Who we are as Unitarian Universalists is not set in stone. Our society is calling us to act in the same way Crane Society was calling her congregation and her ministry to be present and alive and relevant in the world. If Crane could succeed in a small frontier town in the 1890s, imagine what congregations, what your congregations, what Kalamazoo can be doing in 2023. Friends, may we realize the power of our collective agency as Unitarian Universalist congregations, and may our imagination embrace the possibilities of ministry in a world that has emerged changed by that pandemic and that continues to call for action in times of violence and oppression. And in doing that work, may we come closer to that long-held goal of a beloved community where all are welcomed and all are able to live to their potential. May it be so, friends.
Wow, powerful words and challenging. Let's sing together. Rise in body or spirit, if you would, and we will sing People of Hope. It's hard to believe in the sun in the dark of the night. And it's hard to believe in the stars in the bright morning light. Well, we all need a place we can go to learn what is real. To ponder the depths of the soul where truth is revealed. Oh, this is our place. This is our home. Working and seeking, we're never alone. In this mortar and stone, these windows and walls, love's earthly home, reading the call. It's bread for the journey, oil for the flame, for people of love, people of hope, people of change. It's hard to believe there is peace when war rages on. And it's hard to believe there is love in hate's raging throng. But for every brave soldier, a peacemaker takes her own stand. And for every soul long turned away, there waits a new hand. Oh, let it be you. Let it be me. Here in love's dwelling, we learn to believe in this mortar and stone, these windows and walls, love's earthly home, heeding the call. It's bread for the journey, oil for the flame, for people of love, people of hope, people of change, for people of love, people of hope, people of change. We're living out love, living out hope, living out change. Oh, sing out for love, sing out for hope, sing out for change. Now I believe in love in the dark of the night.
So friends, we are blessed by this faith and this home that we share. May we continue to seek truth with humility and curiosity, spreading love and being allies so that all might thrive. Grateful for the legacy of those who came before us and being the best ancestors that we can be for future generations. May we be the people who make hope an action word. Go in peace and love. And thank you for allowing me to join you this morning.